Hello, Footballer Nation, and welcome to Footballers Anonymous. My name is Carson, and I'm a Cardsaholic, baby.
Me when I hit him with the, I'm Alex, and I'm a Billsaholic.
I'm Ian, and I'm a Bearsaholic.
We got a lot of stuff to talk to you guys about this week, but before we do that, let's roll that intro. Hello, Footballer Nation, and welcome to Footballers Anonymous, the greatest rising podcast in football, coming at you from a crazy Week 10. What's going on, everyone?
Well, two of us won.
Woo! Yeah! One of us went to our team's game, too. And spoiler alert, it was not one of us who won.
I was in attendance for the Bears-Patriots game. It was my first NFL game, and yeah, it was fun to watch that live.
I know you were supposed to be motivated going to that game, but you weren't supposed to lose to the guy named Mayo.
Yeah, but it happened anyway.
Hey, one day you'll be able to tell your kids that you saw the game that got Shane Waldron fired.
That is very true.
True.
I wish it also got Eberflus fired, but at least Waldron got fired.
Hey, that's a step in the right direction.
I did get this Caleb Williams jersey at the game, so that was something, and this hat. So,
you know, I kind of want to talk about Caleb Williams for a minute, actually, because remember that quote way back at the beginning of the season where he was talking about how the punter wouldn't see the field very much because the offense would be so good?
Wasn't the quote, but okay.
He said something along the lines. That's something you know better.
The quote was, "You won't be punting much this year," and Corey Taylor responded saying, "That's cool to me."
Well, he's a liar.
It's not even his fault. He's not the liar.
Corey Taylor has punted more yards this season than Caleb Williams has gained total yards with the Bears offense. How do you feel about this?
Well, it's not his fault. So, and Corey Taylor's an amazing punter. So,
okay. Maybe it's a little early for me to bring this up, but since we're already talking about Caleb Williams, I had a conversation with Alex earlier this week. I was not talking to Ian about the Bears at that point because it was right after the Bears game, and I assumed that he was already feeling down, so I figured not a good idea to talk about how bad the Bears are. Alex and I had a couple of things to say about Caleb Williams. One of which being that first off, he is a rookie, which definitely obviously affects. He has to get used to the growth that comes from playing in the NFL, and he's obviously been put in a very bad position to do that. However, it's just throwing it out there. Justin Fields was in a worse situation last year and performed better. Granted, yes, in multiple years he performed better than Williams did. He had that same O-line, that same awful coaching, and even then he still ended last year on what I would say was a high note.
Here's what I'll say about that. One, the consistency of being sacked is actually very consistent between the three. I saw a stat earlier where I believe it was 2022. Fields was sacked. I think it was about like 16% of dropbacks. And then 2023 it was higher. Then 2024 Williams so far has been sacked 12.9% of his dropbacks. And while the coaching was not worse because Shane Waldron is horrible, and we had Luke Getsy last year, who, while he wasn't great at all, I will say he wasn't great either. He was much, much better than Waldron. Um, and again, I'm not saying Fields was bad. Fields was never the problem. We've talked about this many
No,
times. I've said many times before. Fields was never the problem in Chicago. It was again the offensive line and just like the overall team situation, especially when they went 3-14. That was a
no,
really
yeah.
bad team that year. And yes, Williams is in a way better position. He's performing worse, but I mean, you just break it down. The offensive line is so much worse. Um, and or not Williams, Fields had experience. Poles has done nothing to invest in the O line, even when he knew that we were getting a rookie quarterback coming in. So that's a lot on Poles. Again, offensive line is way worse. For example, this Williams was sacked 9 times against the Patriots. That's the first time that's happened to a Bears quarterback since 2010, and that quarterback was Jay Cutler, and it's the first time the Bears have allowed back-to-back 6+ game sacks since like 1990. So it's been very, very bad in terms of the offensive line, and the receivers have been very poor at creating any sort of separation, especially Moore, who has seemed to have just been giving up on plays all throughout the season. Um,
He's been very
it's
angry
it's
with the
been
whole
bad, and
situation this like week 2.
also I will say, even when I was at the game, I witnessed so many drops. And there has been no, it's not as bad as a lot of other teams. And I'm aware of that, but there have been some really bad drops in this on our team. Um, so obviously, you guys are kind of making the point that again, Fields was performing better than Williams at this point, and I agree. He has been, but this even though the situation Williams is much better, it's also completely different situations, in my opinion, from what I've seen it from this past 3-4 years of watching the Bears team that we are currently experiencing. Went on a little bit of a rant there, but
No, I think all that is fair. Um, yeah, I just I feel like my main issue with is I feel like Fields probably prospered a little more because he was much more comfortable using his feet. I mean, Caleb Williams has openly said that he does not like to scramble and rush. That's just not his play style. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what like saved Justin Fields a lot was being able to use his feet, and Williams just
very
does
much so.
not fit into that style
But
of offense, and
even
they're not
even
adjusting
then,
it for him.
like a lot of sacks have been avoided because of Williams' ability to move in the pocket. He Fields, if he was facing pressure, he would just take off. And that's how he would extend the plays. Whereas Williams, what he does is if he's getting pressurized and he actually escapes the sack, he actually escapes the 3 dudes that are right on his back. Um, he tries to stay back and make the throw, which was one thing that um, not really me personally, but I know a good amount of Paris fans were kind of upset with Fields. The fact that he didn't try to throw, he just took off. But with Williams, it's the opposite. I would prefer it if he took off more as opposed to waiting to throw because with the receivers creating no separation when the few times, like not the few times, but when he is actually able to break out of the pocket and scramble around and do all the stuff that he's been doing. There's been some great clips of him doing just that. But then he just kind of stands there and goes to make the throw, but then no one's open, and it results in poor placement. And also another thing too, um, Dan Orlovsky touched on this, which by the way, the quarterback advice from him is kind of crazy work. But um, the ability for a quarterback to just throw a ball away or just throw it into the dirt is actually great, and Williams has not been doing that. He's very rarely just throwing the ball away or just throwing it to the dirt, which is something that he should definitely work on. So,
You mean he's not a genius who throws the ball at the dirt on purpose?
just like Patrick
Like Patrick
Mahomes,
Like the
Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes?
correct?
Oh man. We
Patrick Mahomes.
we had a lot of incompetent coaching this week. But we also had some incompetent coaches maybe doing well. Like Coach Coach Rizzy and the Saints. Uh, he
Well, I
he
wouldn't
came on a
call him.
yeah, well, he came on a press conference today and just stated that the first thing he did before the game was walk into the coach's locker room and clogged the toilet. To which he said he knew that it would be a crappy day.
W Riz.
But hey, it wasn't.
It
They
wasn't.
won.
W Rizzy.
They won.
W
W
Rizzy.
Riz. And on the topic of the Saints, Mr. Alvin Kamara is actually he's a beast. We know this. He's been so good for so long. Not all these were set this week, of course. But Alvin Kamara, let's just list them out. He has set multiple Saints records. He set the record for rushing yards, all-purpose yards, receptions by a running back, first downs, rushing touchdowns, all-purpose touchdowns, and career yards from scrimmage. He's
7
set
different Saints records.
7 Saints running back records. His 6 or 7 touchdown game against the Vikings.
That was a game to watch.
That was a great
That
game.
was a good game to watch.
Now another good game to watch this Thursday. We had the Bengals at the Ravens, one of Footballers Anonymous' game of the week, and we were correct about this one.
We cooked
Um,
again.
We did cook again. Jamar Chase walked away with 264 yards, 3 touchdowns. Speaking of walking away, he had a walking touchdown.
This was more than a walking touchdown, okay? He was wide open at the end zone. He gets there and no one's on him, so what does he do? He just waits. He just stood there and waited and just let the clock go for like 7 or 8 seconds. The Bengals had the majority time of possession this game because Jamar Chase just stood there. Like, it was that close. They had the majority time of possession because Jamar Chase just stood there and extended the time of that play by 8 seconds.
That's insane. He really was like, yeah, let's get us the time of possession advantage. Unfortunately, they didn't win the game, and Joe Burrow is now going down as the player to have the most touchdowns versus one team without a win in NFL history. He had 9 versus the Ravens this season, which is absolutely insane. It just is a testament to how awful their defense is and how good Burrow is, but like it shows that it's still a team league regardless.
Correct.
Thanks
Joe
for
Cool
telling me
cannot
I
do
was
it all.
correct.
No problem. No problem.
Of course, of course.
Do you think I'm also correct in saying that the Panthers extended Chuba Hubbard? Is that a correct statement?
I don't know. I'm gonna do some research into that one.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh,
happen to
Joe
know that
Hubbard.
you are correct.
This is a very correct statement.
It
The
is a
Panthers
correct statement.
extended Chuba Hubbard, which I think is also the correct play because he's been carrying that offense.
He
Very much so.
single-handedly won the game in Munich. Which,
The Panthers
hey,
have won 2 in a row.
that wasn't even a bad game, though. Like, they were both so bad that they just lowered to each other's level, so it just looked like a good game. Except for when the Giants fumbled the ball on the first snap of overtime and just let the Panthers win. It was still, like, such a good game to watch. Chuba Hubbard, you are
Yeah.
a beast.
No, I honestly expected more from the Giants because of how they were playing in the beginning of the season, making games close and stuff. They've just fallen off a cliff, and the Panthers played a very good game. They've won 2 in a row, both of which being at home. They have that 4-game home streak we talked about last week. Maybe they'll win their next 2 home games, right, guys? They'll maybe.
No.
Unfortunately, no.
Unfortunately.
If
So,
they come back and beat the Chiefs, then we'll be talking.
if the
But I know
Panthers beat the Chiefs, then
They might go 1.
we should make a promise for that.
no,
Like, that's
we've made too
genuinely
many
so.
promises.
Okay, but
Speaking
that's
of
not
which, we had a promise last week that if our video on YouTube got 10 likes, we would do a Footballers Anonymous rap battle. Unfortunately, that video did not get there. So
really.
no, it did not get to 10 likes.
That's crazy.
So that's a little disappointing, but we're willing to make that promise again. If you guys get 10 likes on this video, then we'll do the Footballers Anonymous rap battle.
I mean,
but
surely one of them, but it's 10.
I do have our stats for this week. We did our listeners on all podcast forms doubled this week. And our YouTube channel which is majority because of YouTube Shorts, but it's still worth noting, went from 12,000 total channel views to 16,000 total channel views.
That's very nice.
Boom!
We appreciate
the support. Unfortunately,
we will bring you better football knowledge. We'll bring you better football knowledge than Jerry Jones and his ability to not realize that the sun is in the way of the players.
What a bum! CeeDee Lamb dropped the touchdown pass because of the sun.
He didn't even drop it. He didn't get his hands on it.
Yeah, he didn't even drop it. He was just like, he's looking that direction and he's just like running. He kind of his hands like up, but not like up. It's kind of just like down here, and the ball's like way over here. He doesn't even realize that the ball passes him until
He's just staring into blank space. And then when asked about this, Jerry Jones made a comment of, "What do you want me to do? Spend $1 billion on a new stadium?" Just like a sarcastic comment about. It's just like you're an idiot in the first place for building the stadium the way you did. It's great for pictures. As someone who likes photography, it's great for pictures, but it's not great for your team's performance.
I mean, they could just add curtains or something, like just so it looks good in the pictures and then looks good in the game.
Though, I genuinely don't think that team performance is going to be a priority this season, especially with Dak Prescott officially being out for the season, leaving the team in the hands of Trey Lance and Cooper Rush.
Who, by the way, had the 2 lowest EPAs for dropback this week against the Eagles. EPA is efficiency per attempt. They were the 2 lowest. So that was very sad.
Both of those quarterbacks who are on the Cowboys at the lowest efficiency per attempt per drop back. And the Cowboys have trailed by more than 20 points in their last 5 home games.
Remember last year when they were like undefeated at home and there were such menaces at home, and now it's just like it's completely flips this year. Like that's this Cowboys home team fall off needs to be studied. Like this is like insane at this point.
The Cowboys fall off in general needs to be studied. I think I speak for a lot of NFL fans when I say I'm loving this. So.
Oh, absolutely!
I am loving this for sure. This is amazing. Wonderful.
Especially like the defense, especially doesn't make sense. How like I know it's mostly because Dan Quinn left and Mike Zimmer's not doing incredible, but like they still have like the same players. You'd think they'd at least be able to hold any of the teams that come into their home barn under like 30, but they haven't been able to do that.
One of my favorite things to remind Cowboys fans of is the fact that come off season they're losing Micah Parsons because they can't afford him.
Oh, 100%.
That's gonna be really interesting to see where he goes. We'll have to cover that.
Reminder.
Oh, so good. So good.
If we want to kind of highlight players that left their teams, well, I guess he didn't really leave his team because he got booted out. But Mac Jones he left New England. He also got taken out of New England because he's not a great quarterback, and he's
Maxonville.
He's been backing up in Duval, and Lawrence didn't play this week. And, you know, he had a game.
Yeah, it wasn't even that bad, to be
Doug Peterson had a lot to say about it.
Doug Peterson did not like
that. In a press conference, he was asked about Mac Jones' last interception. It was a terrible interception on a deep ball. And he said to the press, and I quote, "Yeah, I'm not going to go through the details of that play because you guys wouldn't figure it out." Just called everyone stupid.
Honestly, that's kind of just what Doug Peterson does, and I love it. Should he still have a job? Probably not, but that's still a funny press conference answer.
Why am I noticing now that more teams have bad coaches than good coaches?
Because that's typical. There's also a lot of bad teams this year.
Yes. I think there are a lot of bad teams.
Not everyone's cut out for the job, I don't know.
Ian, the Bears aren't that.
They are.
Okay, they're pretty bad.
Maybe the Bears just need Ian at coach.
Bro, put me a receiver. I'll create separation. And I
Get
can
the offense
catch.
back to work.
You know who else could catch this week? Ricky
I was gonna say,
Pearsall. I hate the 49ers, but you gotta love Ricky Pearsall. After getting shot in the offseason, he had his first NFL touchdown, so that's pretty cool.
This was
he
the
really
first
shot
week I
through that
started him in
defense.
fantasy too.
Love to see that.
And in that same game, CMC made his return.
He didn't
His
score.
first game this season. No, he actually had pretty average stats.
I
Carson.
think that's okay. Yes, Alex.
Carson. He's coming for you.
I'm not scared of him anymore. We have a good defense now. Good defense. Not scared.
Not even a good defense can stop Christian McCaffrey with the division on the line in week 18.
I'm not
which,
afraid.
Yeah.
I know that's what's gonna happen, but I'm not afraid
We'll
because
see.
now we have a crazy running back room to counter him.
We'll see what happens come the time if you're
A
still
full room to counter one man.
Correct.
Let's finish up with the last game this week that happened last night at the time of recording. Tua and the Dolphins beating Stafford and the Rams. It was an interesting game. Honestly, I'm not okay, no, we're not doing that. Rams house. But the Dolphins won. I wasn't too surprised, but there was a play in that game. Tua threw it wasn't an awful interception, but it wasn't a good interception either. But he threw an interception. The Rams defender's running back. And Tua, being the very smart man he is, who's definitely trying to protect his head, dives into him head first and tries to tackle him like that. Luckily, he didn't do his fencing pose and have to get taken out of the game for like the 7th time in his career or whatever. But which good thing he's okay. But did he really think that was a smart thing to do? Like,
He did.
Yes, he did.
Also, fun fact for you, Dolphins fans. Tyreek Hill. In weeks where Tyreek Hill was arrested before the game, he has had more than 100 yards. In weeks where Tyreek Hill was not arrested before the game, he has not had more than 100 yards. He has one game over 100 yards this season. So,
and it was week 1 versus the Jaguars, and the only reason he had 100 yards is because he broke past the one guy.
yeah.
What a wonderful stat.
Yeah, I know we were talking about the Cowboys fall off, but the Tyreek Hill fall off needs to be studied. It's been going quiet. I know Tua's been out, but he hasn't done
amazing.
anything.
When Tua was coming back, he said fantasy managers could start him again, and that's not the case.
Nope. He's been sitting on my bench since week 2.
He had 11 yards versus the Rams. Like, I just want to note this.
He had a touchdown though.
Me when I'm starting Mike Williams
sorry.
over Tyreek Hill.
First off, he had 11 rushing yards. He only had 3 receiving yards.
Yeah, but a 1 yard reception touchdown.
Sorry, he had 3 receptions, 16 yards. He did have a touchdown, but I mean, Waddle had more receiving yards. Jonnu Smith had more receiving yards. Odell Beckham Jr. had more receiving yards. Malik Washington had more receiving yards. Raheem Mostert had more receiving yards. Devin Achane had 1 less receiving yard. Like, what are we doing there?
All right, so we're gonna jump into our segments, our kind of weekly segments. And this week we're gonna start off with our segment. We asked you to ask us questions, and we answered them. So our first question is going to be from Alyssa, and Alyssa asks, "Why do the Bears suck?" And I feel like we talked about that enough. But Ian, do you have anything else to say there?
No, we most definitely covered enough of it. I kind of don't really want to talk about it anymore. Yeah, the Bears suck. They suck, but they're gonna be better eventually. Before I die, right?
One day.
Right, guys.
All right, our second question comes from Ethan, And he says, when are we getting the Footballers Anonymous merch drop, bruh?
Ooh.
Phrase.
More to be announced.
To be continued.
I'll leave
It's
it
in the
at
works.
that. Just
in the works.
just a little teaser there. There's more to be announced.
These are more like t-shirter.
Oh, that was good. Okay, so our next question comes from Connor, and he says, "What round will Colin Schlee be drafted in?" Okay,
Ooh.
so for those of you who do not know, obviously I am a very big Virginia Tech fan. Colin Schlee is the backup quarterback for the Virginia Tech Hokies. He is a redshirt senior who has transferred from UCLA. He had some great success there. And he has been my my dark horse college quarterback this entire year. He in our awful loss to Clemson, he managed to outplay Kyron Drones in 1 quarter of play. They put him in for the 4th quarter, and he outplayed Kyron Drones, our starter. In that awful game against Clemson. To give you guys a perspective on how much I believe in this guy, I have called him the next coming of Mitch Trubisky.
Ooh.
He
whoa,
is.
Whoa, whoa.
You don't.
Hey.
You do not know Colin
That's
Schlee like
insane.
I do. He is
No,
the
but you're
new
just
Colin Schlee.
you can't compare anyone to Mitch Trubisky.
But I am. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Mitch Trubisky, but he is like he's the next Mitch Trubisky player. Colin Schlee, he is going to go first overall in the NFL draft. No idea who will get that pick, but he will go first overall this season. I have no doubt. He is him. He's going to send some team to the Super Bowl several times, and it is going to be amazing. Colin Schlee, you are amazing. Please return my calls. We have a question from Isaiah, yes. Isaiah asks, "Are you guys real, or are you figments of my imagination that are attempting to prove that they are real?"
Here's what I'll say. My philosophy class, all right? By the studies of Rene Descartes, okay? He says, if you can think that you're real, then that's pretty solid evidence that you are real. So if I sit here and I say, I think I'm real, then I'm real.
I mean, I think I'm real.
Then you're real.
I think I'm real.
Then you're real. We're all real.
Now, here's my
Yeah.
question. Here's my question to the viewers. Where are those philosophy jobs? Besides, like, stuff that's, like, outside of philosophy that's slightly related.
Their jobs are writing articles about random topics and publishing them. That's a philosopher's job, in all honesty.
Yeah,
I'm not a
pretty much.
philosopher.
I
I'm
think
not a
Alex
philosophy
is
major.
trying to
I'm just
push
taking the
us.
class because it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he is too. But
I feel like Alex is trying to
it's
push
very
us.
What
speculative.
is
I'm
the
oblivious.
We need to get a philosophy major to write what is the meaning of Footballers Anonymous.
Wait,
That's
are
what I was
you
saying. Actually, I'm
implying?
not on the Segway train, by the way. I'm just talking.
What?
Oh, okay. Cool.
Anyway,
Anyways, so we had some pretty big changes here at Footballers Anonymous this week. I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but we went through a full Footballers Anonymous rebrand. Definitely not so that we can publish merch, because that's crazy. Why would we do that?
it is merch.
What even is merch?
Is
Yeah.
the meaning of which?
So we have our new logo is officially updated everywhere. Our intro is updated now. Got some
As you
pretty
saw.
cool stuff coming.
Which, by the way, me and Alex have not seen yet. So when this episode goes live, that'll be our first time seeing the intro.
It's pretty crazy. I'm
And
not
then
gonna lie.
when that goes live, I'll be thinking, what is the meaning of this intro?
Dude, stop with the philosophy.
What is the meaning of Alex asking what the meaning is of things that have meaning?
That's so real.
Should make that a new segment. This week, Alex discovered the meaning of boy.
And now here's your quick reminder that we are still looking to have a mascot on the podcast. If you have a favorite mascot, you should totally hit them up. Try to get them on here because there are a couple lame ones who will do it if we pay them, but we don't want to pay them. So we need your guys' help. And a lot of that comes from downloading our podcasts, following us on social media, all forms of social media, subscribing to our YouTube, liking our videos, and commenting if you want. Because if you comment, that you could be featured on a comment of the week.
This week's comment of the week is from Alex Joseph Fan 1. Now, in our last podcast episode, we had a little special note out there for the people that were on the stream. The first person to find the secret message and kind of type it in the comment section was going to be the number one Alex Joseph fan. And funny enough, Alex Joseph fan 1 was the number one because they typed Coin God. That's the comment of the week. What is the meaning of the comment of the week?
What I'm hearing is you want the stat line of the week?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for catching on.
What is the meaning of the stat line of the week? This week, its meaning is De'Ami Brown, who had 2 catches off 3 targets for negative 13 yards. And by the way, his longest play this week was a negative 2-yard loss. So,
bro went the wrong way.
Shout out, I guess.
Bro went the wrong way. He needs like a one-way sign on the field. Hold up his left and right, like
Fun fact too. This is the second time a Washington Commanders player has been featured as their stat line of the week, meaning that they now have the most.
De'Ami Brown's stat line, it was pretty bad. But it's not the bad that I'm really looking for.
Are you looking for the bad ease?
I may just be.
Because we got some baddies! Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for this week's Footballers Anonymous Power Rankings.
Segues.
For those of you who don't know, we here at Footballers Anonymous every week make a group power rankings. Now, how these power rankings work are all 3 of us make individual power rankings. And we then put them together and average them out together to make a group power rankings. Unfortunately, a lot of the times we have disagreements, and the way these averages work, sometimes we get ties where they both get the same number value and they're stuck in the same spot. In which case, we will discuss and decide by a group vote on which of these teams takes the higher spot. This week, we have 2 ties in our top 12, no ties in the baddies, and we had 2 ties that we already figured out, not in those 15 teams. So we will talk about the 2 ties in the top 12 when we get there, and until then, we're going to jump into our bottom 3 teams, the baddies. Coming in with our first baddie spot this week, we got the living meme himself, Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans.
I'm feeling motivated.
I'm feeling so motivated.
I'm feeling silly because
what is the meaning of motivation?
The meaning is meme of the week. Because we got our Will Levis meme of the week this week against the Chargers. They didn't even have a bad performance per se. It was a pretty decent performance. But one image shined above the rest. He is getting sacked by one of the Chargers players. Silly little face on his end, but it honestly kind of looks like he's getting a bear hug from behind.
Yeah, it does. And his face is that of great concern.
Great concern, but it looks like it's just old friends just giving him a big old hug, and like his head's kind of buried into his shoulder. It looks very romantic, I will say.
Very romantic, but he did not want that hug.
He did not want that hug.
No.
Where my hug at?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yep.
And this week, it's in the meme, I guess. Anyway,
Coming
Yeah,
up
there's
with
your
our
latest meme of the week.
second Batty Award. Coming in at spot number 31, we have the New York Giants.
The New
One might
York
say
Football
that they
Giants.
fumbled
I was
the
gonna say
game
that.
away.
They fumbled their way down the power rankings too.
Giants, you had it in your hands in overtime. All you had to do was score one more touchdown. You couldn't even make it one snap in overtime. Not a single snap. The Ultra Baddie for this week. A team that was tied in competing for this spot last week, but unfortunately didn't make it. But this week, they proved themselves to be just so bad. Just so bad. We have the Las Vegas Raiders.
Now, some might say they didn't even prove themselves to be bad. They didn't have a fair shot, but they literally lost to the bye week. Like, you can't do that.
Facts. The Raiders are just a disappointing team. Very, very,
They,
very disappointing.
they might be the first team to claim the Ultra Baddie Award on the bye week.
Yeah.
Hey, they went gambling and they lost.
The Raiders are just the ultra baddies on the bye week. You know there's something wrong there. But now we get to get into some of the good teams. Okay, we've got our, I don't want to call them the goodies because that's just weird. But we have our top 12 teams coming in at number 12. Just barely hanging on. We got the Atlanta Falcons. Lost to the Saints.
They couldn't handle the Riz.
Not at all. It was a very weird game. I will say, Bijan Robinson went off, but
They really just
couldn't
couldn't
get it.
capitalize, which was like unfortunate because they didn't even have a bad offensive game per se. But then there was a Kirk, he had a pick, and then they just couldn't capitalize when they got down the field. They had a lot. They had a pretty good amount of yards. Kirk had 300 yards. Bijan had 116 yards. It just couldn't get it.
Yeah,
In the
I have a feeling this team will bounce back. I'm still a firm believer in Kirk Cousins as a player. He is a great player. I just think it was a weird off week for them.
also,
I'm sure they'll bounce back.
Also, I know this is about the Falcons, but the Saints continue to be second quarter merchants. If you remember, they had that game 7 points in the second quarter against the Bucks and none in the rest of the game. In this game, they had 17 of their 20 points in the second quarter. So I don't know what it is about the second quarter with New Orleans, but they just that's the only time they can score apparently.
I don't have much to say about that. I mean, that's a really weird stat actually.
It is.
The Falcons. I want to touch up on their receiving core real quick. London and Mooney are a very deadly duo there in Atlanta. Both of them almost had 100 yards this week. London had 97, Mooney had 96. They've been performing really well, and I think it's probably surprising for a lot of people. But to me, the Falcons aren't performing like a 6-4 team. They're playing much better than that.
Coming in at number 11, we have the LA Chargers.
Really?
Yeah. They made the top 12. The
Chargers.
Justin Herbert hasn't thrown a pick in 7 games.
Longest streak by a Chargers quarterback in their franchise history. Now, granted, that's only quarterbacks because there are some players on the Chargers that haven't thrown picks that are not quarterbacks. But in terms of the important people throwing the ball, yes, he hasn't thrown a pick in the longest streak for Chargers history. But I feel like he should try and throw less picks than Joey Bosa. Trust, guys.
Yeah. Herbert actually had a really good game this week. 14 for 18, 164 and a touchdown. A very solid game on his end.
Shout out to his O-line too.
Yards. Their passing game is effective when it needs to be, and that's
coming in number 10. We have the Minnesota Vikings.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It was
crazy.
just a really bad game. Really, really bad game against the Jaguars.
They have not played good football since the Lions loss.
Mm-mm.
We are definitely seeing a classic tale from the Vikings of mid-season collapses. Sam Darnold is starting to show his true colors.
Yep.
Coming in at number 9, we have, with I think their first top 10 appearance in our rankings, the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow.
Yeah.
If only we had a Cardsaholic here to talk about that team.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to. I'll just do the best I can.
What is the meaning of a Cardaholic?
Well, in order to define what a Cardaholic is, we first have to define the man himself, Kyler Murray. Okay, never coming into this season did I think I would genuinely just casually hear Kyler Murray's name come up in MVP conversations. And while obviously he's not the favorite, the fact that his name is even thrown out is incredible. Okay, this week he had 91.7% completion ratings. He went 22 for 24, threw for 266 passing yards, threw 1 touchdown to Marvin Harrison, and had 2 rushing touchdowns, one of which he did his classic celebrating 10 yards before he even gets there gimmick. And he had a 126.7 passer rating. This man is on fire, okay? He has we're bringing up that EPA stat again. He has the highest EPA per dropback in week 10. He broke the franchise record for straight completions with 17 straight completions this game. He currently has a 75.5 QBR on the year, which is the second highest in the NFL besides Lamar Jackson. And gotta shout out the fact that he took the most ugly sack of the week from Quincy Williams. Helmet went flying off, and he got up laughing. He liked it. Look, this man coming off of injury, he's just an incredible playmaker. And I think the beautiful thing about it is while we're starting to see glimpses of what he looked like in 2021, with obviously that crazy undefeated season, this is still an entirely different type of team. In 2021, basically what Arizona was doing was just making Kyler Murray be Superman every week. And if Kyler Murray couldn't be Superman, they would just crumble. Whereas this year, we have clearly seen that the Cardinals' offense can win in so many different ways. They can win with Kyler Murray has expressed that some games for him are super boring because they just run the ball, like the Bears game. But they know how to exploit different defenses. They absolutely destroyed the Jets. It was awful. And they can do it differently every week without Kyler Murray having to be Superman. But they also give him chances to show that he is that guy. And on the defensive side of the ball, for the first time in like forever, the Cardinals have a consistent defense. Budda Baker is putting up the best performance he has ever had with the Cardinals. And these two guys can tell you I genuinely don't like Budda Baker. But I don't want to, but I might admit that I was maybe possibly wrong about him coming into this season. And as for the rest of our pretty no-name defense, they have been doing very well for themselves. In their last 3 home games, or 3 of their last 4 games, the opposing team has not scored a touchdown. The last time an opposing NFL team has scored a touchdown in State Farm Stadium was week 4. It was the Commanders. They're the last team the Cardinals have played to score a touchdown in State Farm Stadium. And I mean, you could make an argument for maybe quality of opponents there, but I mean, the Chargers were one of those teams, and they're a pretty good offense. But they were absolutely shut down. Cardinals are coming in on a 4-win streak going into the bye. The fact that they even have a win streak is insane. Kyler Murray hasn't won back-to-back games since 2021 before this. And now they have a good bye week before they have what should be an easy win against the Seahawks. This team is a serious wild card contender now, and they're going to be competing with a 49ers team that hasn't been performing the way people necessarily want them to. But with Christian McCaffrey coming back, it's definitely going to be a race between these two teams for the division. So I'm excited to see where that goes. That's all I really have for the Cardinals. They are 3-0 since Call of Duty came out. Just thought I'd throw that out there. And coming in at number 8, we have the Green Bay Packers. Alex, can you talk about the Packers? I don't want to.
Yeah, so, I mean, frankly, there's not much to say about the Packers this week. They're on the bye, but they're kind of just in their place. One, because they killed the Cardinals and have to be above them. At least that was my philosophy with that. But also,
Philosophy.
Wait. So you're saying that the Packers killed the Cardinals, so they have to be above them, but the Ravens killed the Bills, and they don't?
in my power rankings, I had a team in between the two, so it's not the same.
I think that's worse, but okay, whatever.
Listen, the Packers are winning games. They are. Not all of them
Unfortunately.
have been pretty, which sucks. But I do want to touch on the fact that Jordan Love still leads the league in interceptions.
He's tied with Sam Darnold.
He's tied with Sam Darnold, but that's still leading the league.
Yes.
And also, he missed 2 due to injury, and this week was their bye week. So that's technically a 3-game deficit. So I can't really sit here and say too many good things about the Packers. I hate them. They're overrated, but I'm trying my best.
Geno Smith is also tied with them at 10 interceptions, followed by that Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, and Jared Goff, which 2 of those we'll talk about later.
Coming in up next, we have our first of our 2 top 12 ties. This is I usually love how our ties match up, except we had one today that was the Bears and the Browns, which was disgusting. But this tie for 6 and 7, we have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Oh my goodness.
Oh, really? I think this is more of like prediction as to who we think is going to win, but well, not necessarily, but we'll talk about both teams first. The Eagles, they destroyed the Cowboys. I mean, that's not much to say about that. They went into Dallas, shined the sun in their eyes, and left with a 34-6 win.
I will say
Pickett in with 10 minutes left, and he was still productive. So, well, not really. The team itself was productive with Kenny Pickett in with 10 minutes left. So
I will say, the main reason this is a tie is because I am not confident in the Eagles at all. I think especially in the head coaching area, they have too many issues there, and I think people are a little too hyped up on them because they beat the Cooper Rush and Trey Lance Cowboys. Now you could also make the same argument that I'm too high on the Cardinals because they beat the Jets, which is fair. But most people have the Eagles up in their top 5, and I think that is absolutely wrong. But I also am still a believer that the Washington Commanders are going to have a midseason crash because of Cliff Kingsbury. So I feel like this is a justified tie, and these teams are probably about where they need to be. Jalen Hurts does look incredible, which is worth noting. I think I'm going to put the Eagles above the Commanders, but I definitely have some issues with both.
I agree. I think I'm gonna take Philly too. Because like you said, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown have found their footing. Obviously AJ Brown kind of had some injuries beginning of the year, and Hurts wasn't looking amazing. But in the past few weeks, the Hurts Brown connection has definitely took a turn for the better. Devonta Smith has been looking great as usual. And for me, Saquon Barkley is just a beast. This Eagles team is so much better because of Saquon Barkley. And I think he will be the reason, and he has been the reason that they have won a lot of games. So because of that, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Barkleys.
I agree with that. I'm gonna take Philadelphia as well. We didn't talk much about the Commanders, but they had a very close game with the Steelers, and then they jumped off sides. Which, granted, it was 4th and 1s, but I feel like I don't think they were gonna actually go for that. It's possible, but it's Tomlin, so I don't think they would have, and they got him on the jump.
Up next, we have a tie that is only a tie because one of us put one of these teams way higher than the rest of us. We have a tie between the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you already
That's
know how this is going to go. But
really, that's crazy.
Yeah. So we can start with Buffalo. Alex, if you want to take over there.
All right. Well, I mean, they dominated in another game. The Colts game was not that interesting, I'm gonna be completely honest. It was close for a little bit, and then we pulled away. I mean,
I was going to say, I wouldn't.
we were always like 2 to 3 steps ahead of the Colts. It was like 1 to 2, and then became 2 to 3. Um, James Cook had a pretty good game. He had 80 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen, he had 280 yards. He did have a couple picks. One of them was definitely not his fault. The other one was eh. Um, he also had a rushing touchdown and 50 rushing yards, so he had over 300 all-purpose yards. Matt Collins had himself a day, as Ian is a little bit of a Matt Collins hater. He had 4 catches for 86 yards. He did not have a drop. He played a very nice game, actually. I was watching that. He had some very nice catches, and he got a lot of yards after the catch.
No way. You were watching the Bills?
Yeah, I know, right?
Bro.
Yeah,
What?
that's crazy.
I will say dominated is a bit of an overstatement. This game
Sure.
was ugly for a little while. In fact, you even texted me saying you thought you were going to lose at one point.
I didn't say I
Or
thought we
you
were gonna
didn't.
lose. I
You
just
said we
we
might.
were losing. We were losing 13-10, but that was mostly because Allen, or it was like there was a pick, and then the Colts scored, and then we just punted. Another time they scored again. I was like, okay. The offense stalled for 2 drives, and then after that, we made it 30-13. After it was 13-10, so it really wasn't that close. After that, we made it 10-0. Then they got their 13, and then we just pulled away after that. I mean, we had a bad like quarter that was like in between quarters, but you know. Josh Allen tied OJ Simpson for the Bills rushing touchdowns, 2nd place, not the record. They're behind Thurman Thomas.
He
Tied him
is
with
2
57.
murders short, unfortunately.
He is 2 murders short, so he's got to work. He should not work on that, but
No, he shouldn't. What?
he's, he should just break the record instead.
He's got to break both
Oh.
records.
Meanwhile, the Steelers are playing very good football. I mean, Russell Wilson is 3-0 as a starter. I don't
But
know if I love to see it, but
I'm sad to see Fields bench, but I can't deny Wilson's been playing very good football. This week, not as great. He had 50% completion percentage, 14 for 28. But off those 14 completions, he still had 195 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Najee Harris had a game. Big shock. Didn't even know that kid still existed. Pickens had a game, which is a big thing about Russell Wilson coming back. Pickens has been playing really great. Just in terms of overall play, Wilson has been amazing for the Steelers team.
I'm definitely putting the Steelers at 4. All right, coming into number 3, we have the Ravens. The Ravens had a bit of a scary game against the
Just a little bit.
Bengals, but they did win that game, and the all of national television was gifted by seeing Derrick Henry's um Derrick Henry's butt. We all just saw his butt.
Yep.
Um,
About half of it.
yeah. And upon seeing it, I was watching this game with our friend Charlie, who is a Ravens fan. We were on a FaceTime together while this game was happening, and he and I cooked up a couple of fun little nicknames for this event that I thought Footballers Anonymous has to share with our announcers. So I'm just gonna go down this list, and you guys can tell us if you like them or not. We have the King's Moat, the Grand Canyon, the King's Crack, Derek's Derriere, Henry's Hiney, the Rusher's Rump, the Beast's Bust, the Trucker's Truckus, the Raven's Nest, the Bank's Bum, Tennessee's Titan, and the Back's End. We don't need to talk about it anymore. We can just talk about how good the Ravens are, because they're in third place in our power rankings. And I mean, hey, Lamar Jackson is getting it done. Defense is a weak point for the Ravens. Joe Burrow just absolutely owns them. Unfortunately, when it came down to it, the Bengals defense was worse, and that's pretty much what got the Ravens this win.
And I would like to touch up on currently, obviously Lamar Jackson is the MVP favorite, and Derrick Henry is, I'd say, the clear Offensive Player of the Year favorite.
Coming in at number 2, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, see, we here at Footballers Anonymous did some talking the other day, and I pointed out that a lot of what we do is hate on the Chiefs, and a lot of that is because we don't like the Chiefs. Unfortunately, they are at number 2 here. So you guys are now going to ride with me as a person who hates the Kansas City Chiefs, attempts to talk about good things happening on the Kansas City Chiefs. So, the first thing I have to say, because we haven't mentioned it like at all this throughout this show, Andy Reid just continues to be like that coach. He is a mastermind when it comes to play calling and play design. He's getting it done in Kansas City, even if his players are not having the best performances. He is, and a lot. I'm calling him as the main reason that they are producing the way they are. They did have a very iffy game against the Broncos, and the Broncos definitely shot themselves in the foot at the end because their line was just so bad with that last field goal, and the Chiefs were able to block it. But Bo Nix is a very talented quarterback, and the defense definitely kept them in that game by not letting Bo Nix score more than 14 points because the offense was not producing, right? The Chiefs have also made good moves during the offseason. Everyone just wants to give them their receivers. DeAndre Hopkins has put up decent numbers. Patrick Mahomes just plays better when he has receivers who don't drop balls, and I realize that's more of an issue that they had last year, but it's always going to be a thing. But having especially DeAndre Hopkins join that squad was big for them. If the Bills don't beat them this week, there is a serious risk of the Chiefs going 17-0 this season, because they have already beaten most of their tougher opponents, and it's really just the Buffalo Bills, a rivalry I'm sure absolutely no one in the NFL is getting tired of. We're all getting tired of it, spoiler alert. But yeah, so the Chiefs keep the number 2 spot because they're getting it done.
And also, there's a hot mic of Mahomes asking the referee on the sideline to tell him before he got hit. And also, speaking of the referees, before the game, one of the referees was on FaceTime with Taylor Swift. So I believe that, I don't know the exact information on that anymore, but so a lot of stuff.
We won't get into our actual opinions on that. We will just present that information to you, and you guys can make the assumptions that we're probably trying to imply from that.
So yeah, Chiefs at number 2.
Coming in at number 1, we have the Detroit Lions, coming off of maybe their worst performance this season, but still a W.
A win's a win.
Looking awfully Mahomey out there.
Jared Goff. I don't even know what to say about Jared Goff this week. He's been playing amazing football all year. He went into this game with 4 interceptions.
5.
And then he went into the game with 4.
Oh, my fault.
And then he threw 5 in this game. More than half of the interceptions he's thrown this season came from this game alone, which is insane. Yet they still won. Which I just don't know what to say. Gibbs and Montgomery continue to be an amazing duo in the backfield. Amon-Ra St. Brown continues to be an amazing receiver. I don't really know what to say. The 5 interceptions is really just obviously the glaring stat of this game, and something that really kind of taints the Lions a little bit, but they're still an amazing team and by far the best team in the league.
Dan Campbell decided to have Goff throw those 5 interceptions just to give the Texans a chance and make it an exciting game at the end.
Yeah, this also attributes to the Texans a little bit as well, but I don't know. I think I've commented on them being frauds in enough of these episodes, and I'm just gonna let the games do the talking. That's the first team since 1970 to have 5 interceptions thrown and have a 15 or more point deficit while still winning the game, which is pretty much what we highlighted on anyway. But they were down 23-7 at one point, so that's yeah.
So to recap our power rankings, we have at 32 the Las Vegas Raiders, at 31 the New York Giants, 30 the Tennessee Titans, 29 the Rizzy New Orleans Saints, 28 the New York Jets, 27 the Cleveland Browns, 26 the Chicago Bears, number 25 the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 24 the New England Patriots, number 23 the Carolina Panthers, number 22 the Dallas Cowboys, number 21 the Indianapolis Colts, 20 the Seattle Seahawks, 19 the Los Angeles Rams, 18 the Miami Dolphins, 17 the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 16 the Cincinnati Bengals, 15 the Houston Texans, 14 the Denver Broncos, 13 the San Francisco 49ers, 12 the Atlanta Falcons, 11 the Los Angeles Chargers, 10 the Minnesota Vikings, 9 the Arizona Cardinals, 8 the Green Bay Packers, 7 the Washington Commanders, 6 the Philadelphia Eagles, 5 the Buffalo Bills, 4 the Pittsburgh Steelers, 3 the Baltimore Ravens, 2 the Kansas City Chiefs, and 1 the Detroit Lions. Those are our power rankings.
Would just like to shoot out the reminder, there are power rankings, so they're instantly better than pre-Prisco's.
Before we get into our games of the week, we do have a question from one of our fans, Charlie. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And his question is, what are your games of the week this week?
Whoa.
That's a great question.
Have we thought about this week?
I don't know. There's a lot of good games this week, actually.
We did talk about one of them already. The first is the Chiefs at the Bills. Recent memory, we've been very good against the Chiefs in the regular season. Yeah, it should be an interesting one. Hopefully, we win that game, because if not, then I don't know who's beating them. The only other team I could see maybe beating them is, I guess,
Panthers.
Yeah, no. Maybe a possibility of the Chargers or Broncos, but more likely than not, it's either us or the Steelers.
And then speaking of the Steelers as well, they're our second game of the week this week. In not Heinz Stadium anymore, but in Pittsburgh, the Ravens will be coming in for a big divisional matchup. This is a big fight for first in the division. So it'll just be a good game. The AFC North divisional games are always good games, so it's kind of hard not to pick one. So yeah.
Up next, we have a pretty interesting one, because I know everyone is looking at Eagles Commanders and saying like, oh, well, that's going to be like the game of the week. But no, we have the Bengals and the Chargers. Okay? The Bengals. Joe Burrow is continuing to be him. Their defense is not the same. But the Bengals are still a hot team, really trying to just fight for playoff contention. Every game matters at this point for them. And the Chargers, they are a kind of sneaky AFC team, also hunting for a wild card spot. So this is going to be good. Just the kind of lower end playoff teams. This will be a pretty good indicator for their futures the rest of the season. Those are our games of the week, and that's going to make this week's episode. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you had a wonderful week 10, at least hopefully as wonderful as mine. I had the best week 10, but that doesn't matter. Remember to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Please, like we need the support so bad. Subscribe it up on the YouTube, download our podcast, leave comments on things. You could be featured in a comment of the week or in a question of the week. We have lots of those. We've basically answered every single one we've been given so far, so if you ask one, there's a pretty good chance that it'll get answered. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And with that, Footballer Nation, let's ride.